Today what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to draw a unicorn with a rainbow background. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my new artboard. I'm just going to set this in the landscape orientation, doing 11 by 8.5. So I hit create. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a rectangle that covers the artboard. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my gradient tool. So if you can't find your gradient tool, just look under Windows, scroll down till you find gradient. I'll throw a gradient in there. And I want this gradient to go horizontally, so I'm going to change the angle here. So here in the angles box, where it's set to 0 degrees, I'm going to switch that to 90 degrees. And I don't want this to be black and white because I'm doing a unicorn, so I want to have a little bit of color there. So if I double click on this little circle here on the color spectrum, I can choose my specific colors. So you can throw whatever colors you want in there that you think look good. And I'll just use those two because those are the first two I came to. So go ahead and call that good. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my layers. So you don't see your layers, just scroll down under Window till you find Layers. And I'm going to lock this layer and create a brand new layer. So you can create a brand new layer by clicking on this little plus sign at the bottom of the Layers window. Okay, so on the second layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my rainbow. So to start that, I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw a circle, and I'm going to hold shift while I draw that circle so that my circle maintains a perfectly geometric shape. So after I draw the circle and my shape is still selected, I'm going to go under Effect, I'm going to go to Distort and Transform, and I'm going to go to Transform. And under this window, I'm going to change my horizontal scale to 110%. I'm going to change my vertical scale to 110%. And I'm going to make 6 copies of that. And if you want to see what's happening, select your preview button if it's not already selected. So go ahead and click OK. Alright, so now I've got these multiple rings of circles, but right now it's only recognizing this original circle that I drew. So in order to get to recognize the rest of it, I need to now expand the appearance. So to expand the appearance, I need to go under Object and select Expand Appearance. So once you do that, you'll notice that the bounding box moves outside to the outermost ring. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to take this and cover up the bottom half of my rainbow here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to divide this and cut off the bottom half. So after I use that rectangle to cover up the bottom half, I'm going to select all those shapes, and then I'm going to use my Pathfinder tool. Okay, so if you can't find your Pathfinder tool over here on the right, just look under Window, scroll down till you find Pathfinder. It's all in alphabetical order. Okay, now with my everything selected and my Pathfinder tool open, I'm going to go ahead and divide it. So after I divide it, it groups everything together. And I'm going to not want it all grouped together because I want to get rid of part of it. So while it's still selected, I can go under Object and select Ungroup, or you could right-click and ungroup. Either way, it will ungroup it. Once you've ungrouped it, just click off to the side to deselect it, and then select the half that you want to get rid of, and then you just hit backspace or delete on your keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to throw some color in there just so we can see those a little more clearly. Maybe I'll go ahead and put a stroke around it as well. Okay, so now I'm just going to click on the individual rings and start to color this like a rainbow. So if you go in order of the color wheel, that's what I'm going to do. If you don't want to do that, I mean, it's your rainbow. You color it however you think is best. I got that in the wrong spot. Let's make this last one red. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one in the middle. I don't need it. I'll just take my selection tool, drag it up from the bottom, and hit delete. So now I'm left with with these rings. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all those rings and I'm going to group them together. So you can either group them together by going under Object and Group, or you can right click and group. When you group it together, it moves everything as one solid unit. So it's a little bit easier if you need to make adjustments and move things around if you group it back together that way. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cloud cluster. So to create my cloud cluster, I'll come out here to the side. I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and I'm going to draw a bunch of overlapping circles to make a big old cluster that looks like a cloud. Okay, now I'm going to take my selection tool and I'm going to select all those circles. So I'll just drag this over so I select everything. Now I'm going to go back to my Pathfinder tool, and then instead of dividing it, I'm going to unite it this time. So click the unite, and that's going to make that one solid shape. So I can use that to put at the end of the rainbow. And now I can select this shape and I can copy it by hitting Control C and then pasting it by hitting Control V. And then I can put it on the opposite side of my rainbow. Okay, so now that I have my background complete, I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer and create a brand new layer. So while I'm drawing the unicorn, so I'm not distracted by all this other stuff here in the background, I'm just going to click on this little eyeball on layer 2 and on layer 1 to hide everything. Everything there is still there, of course, it's just not going to be visible while we're working on this next layer, creating our unicorn. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. I'm going to draw an oval that will become the unicorn's head, another oval that will become its body, and then I'm going to draw a rectangle that's going to become the neck to unite those two pieces together. So I'm going to start with the head, and I'm going to go ahead and take my selection tool, select that shape, and I'm going to go under Effect. I'm going to go to Warp, so I want to warp the shape, and I'm going to use the fish option. Okay, so I'm going to set my style here to horizontal, and I'm going to probably do about a negative 40%, and I'm going to have my horizontal set to 0, and I'll have my vertical set to 0 as well. Okay, so if you want to see what's happening, just make sure your preview button is selected, and we'll go ahead and click OK. Alright, so since I warped the shape, right now it still thinks it's an oval. So to get it to recognize the new shape that I made, I'm going to go under Object and I'm going to expand the appearance. So it's important that you expand the appearance when we are doing some of these other steps down the line. So if you forget to do that step, it will mess you up. So make sure that anytime you warp a shape that you expand the appearance of it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and warp the neck, and for the neck I'm going to use the arc option. I'm going to set that to vertical, and I'm going to bend it, say about 30% on the bend, and I'm going to set my vertical to about 25%, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and just like I did before, see, it still thinks that it's a rectangle, so I want it to recognize the new shape. So we'll go under Object and expand the appearance. So once you expand the appearance, you'll notice that the bounding box moves to the outside of the shape. Now the last shape here we're going to warp using the flag option. So I'm going to set that to horizontal, and I think I'll probably just use those same dimensions that I had before because it looks pretty good to me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and since I warped the shape, I now need to expand the appearance. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up these pieces. Okay, so we're going to have this unicorn looking backwards, so I'm going to line those pieces all up so they overlap one another. And now I'm going to take my Pathfinder tool and I'm going to unite those shapes. Okay, so now it's going to kind of look like somebody flexing their arm. Alright, just to make things easy, I'm going to throw some color in here. I might change the color later, and you can make it whatever color you want, but it will be a lot easier to move around if I have a fill color in there. Okay, So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some hair that I'm going to make become its mane. So I'm going to draw a long skinny oval, and I'm going to go ahead and warp that shape, and I'm going to use the flag option for that. And since I drew my oval in a vertical position, I'm going to set that to a vertical position, and I'll go ahead and put a negative 40% bend. I'll put my vertical axis to about 40% as well, and I'll leave the horizontal at 0. Go ahead and click OK. And since I warped the shape, I now must expand the appearance. Okay, so now I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to create multiples of it. So if I select the shape with my selection tool, I can copy this by hitting Control C, Control V to paste it, and then I'm just going to line these up and arrange them around the back of his neck here. So if we select the shape and you come out to the corner, you can rotate those. So that around a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to keep all of these shapes overlapping one another. Let me slide this guy off to the side for a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to select all those hair pieces, and then I'm going to use my Pathfinder, and I'm going to unite all those pieces. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send them to the back of this layer. So I'm going to select my hair, and to send it to the back, you can either go under Object, Arrange, Send to Back, or you can go right-click, Arrange, Send to Back. Either way, it'll send it to the back. So I'll just line that up here on the back. Okay, looks pretty good. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I will go ahead and draw him a horn. Okay, so I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and I'm going to draw a long skinny oval. Then I'm going to take my direct selection tool. I'm going to click on this bottom anchor point, and I'm going to push it up. Then I'm going to click on the top anchor point, and then I'm going to convert that anchor point to a corner. And I might even pull that up a little bit, make it a little more pointy. Alright, so now what I think I might do is I might go ahead and throw a gradient inside there. So I'm going to grab my gradient tool again. I will throw a gradient in there. And I'm going to add another color there. And maybe I'll make this a gold horn. So I'm going to make the sides brown. I'll make the middle yellow. And then this will give it kind of a look of being gold. Now I can take this with my selection tool, slide it over, and stick it on top of this guy's head. So just arrange it however you think looks good. I'll put that right about there. Looks good. Okay. Now what I think I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to make an ear for him. So I'm going to use my ellipse tool again, and I'm going to draw an oval shape. I'll take my direct selection tool, I'll push up this bottom edge, and I'm going to copy this shape by hitting, well, first I'll select the shape with my selection tool, and then I'm going to hit Control C to copy, and I want to paste it right on top, so I'm going to hit Control F. And after I paste it on top, I'm going to scale down the size. So to scale down the size, you can go under Object, Transform Scale, or you can right click, hit Transform Scale, and I'm going to scale it down, we'll say about 75%. I'll click OK. Alright, so now I'm going to make the outside edge the same color as the inside edge. Let me zoom in a little bit. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to snip off this bottom line. So to snip out the bottom line, I'm going to grab my scissor tool. So if you look underneath this eraser icon, you can switch that to the scissor tool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the line on this side, I'm going to click on the line on this side, and while that line is selected, I'll just hit delete to delete those two pieces to leave that edge open. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this together. So I'll take my selection tool, select that, and group it. Let me zoom out a little bit. So to zoom out or zoom in, you can just hit Control plus or Control minus to go in or out. Now I might scale down the size of this ear a little bit, and I might swivel that just a titch. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is maybe we'll work on his face, and then we'll give him a tail and some legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw an ellipse that's going to cover up the front of the face here. So I'll just bring that up to the corner there, cover that up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this circle I drew, and I'm going to select the body. So if you click on that one shape and then hold shift, you can select the other shape as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pathfinder, I'm going to divide it, I'm going to ungroup it. So to ungroup it, you can right click or you can go under object and ungroup. And then after I ungroup it, I'll deselect it, and then I'm going to delete that extra bit of circle there. So we're going to create kind of a muzzle here on his face. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to maybe give him a nostril. So what I'll do is I'm going to take my oval tool, and I'm going to draw a little oval here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to warp the shape. So I'm going to use the arc option. I'm going to warp that horizontally, and I'm going to bend it up 100%. And I'll set everything else to 0. Click OK. And now I need to expand the appearance. I will bring this over. And I might shrink down the size there. It's a little bit big. Let me zoom in here. Now I can arrange this on his face there. And maybe I'll go ahead and give him a mouth. So I'm going to take my ellipse tool. I'm going to make a real skinny ellipse, and I'm going to go ahead and warp that shape. So you go under Effect, Warp Arc, and I'm going to give that a negative 100%. Or if you want him to be frowning, you could do 100%, but we'll make him smile, so I'll do 100%. Everything else since, or negative 100%. Set everything else to 0. Expand the appearance. I'll take my selection tool, we'll slide this over. I shrink it down a little bit and slide this over inside of his face. Give him a smile. And now we should maybe give him an eye. So I'm going to draw another oval here. So I'm going to take my direct selection tool, and I'm going to click on this anchor point on the left and convert that to a corner. I'll click on the anchor point on the right, convert that to a corner. And this will become his eye. So I'm going to make a copy of this shape. So I hit Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap this shape with this circle inside here. And then I'm going to select those two shapes, and then I'm going to use the intersect option with my pathfinder. So it will get rid of everything except for the part that is overlapping. Now I can stick that inside there. Just arrange that. There we go. And maybe I'll change the color of that. And I might take my ellipse tool. We're going to draw a little tiny ellipse, and I'm going to make it white, and I'm going to take off the stroke so we'll have a little bright highlight inside of his eye there. And maybe what I'll do is I'm going to copy this. Actually, what I'll do is I'm going to draw another little skinny oval, and I'm going to take my direct selection tool. I'm going to click on this anchor point on the left side and convert it to a corner. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to warp that shape. So we'll use the arc effect. So warp, effect, warp, arc, and I'm going to arc that up, I'll say about 50%. Click OK. And then I need to expand the appearance here. Since I warped the shape, I take my direct selection tool, we'll put this over here, and give this guy an eyebrow. Okay, so when I divided the muzzle, it brought the body up to the front and pushed the ear back. So I'm going to take my ear and I'm going to go ahead and bring that to the front. So to bring it to the front, I'm going to select the ear. I'm going to go Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. Okay, so let's go ahead and make him some legs and a tail. Maybe we'll start with the tail. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool again, and I'm going to make a long, skinny ellipse, and then I'm going to warp the shape using my flag warp. So if you go under Effect, Warp Flag, and I'm going to set that to vertical, and I'll do like an 80% bend, and I'll maybe do about a 40% on my vertical axis. Click OK. And since I warped the shape, I now need to expand the appearance. And I'm going to take this, I'll swivel this around, and I might make another copy of that. So if you hit Control C, Control V, you can copy and paste it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line those up, and we're going to create a tail. And you could do as many strands as you would like for the tail. That'll be up to you. I might just do 3, but if you want more, you can do more. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll select those, and I'm going to send these to the back. So if you got them selected, you can go under Object, Arrange, Send to Back, or you can right-click, Arrange, Send to Back. Either way, it'll do the same thing. And I'll just stick that back here on the back end of his body. Okay. Give him a nice whippy tail. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is work on his legs. So to make the legs, I think what I'll use is my rounded rectangle tool. And I'm going to draw a rounded rectangle. And then I'm going to warp the shape. So I'll go under Effect, Warp, and I'm going to use the Squeeze effect. You need to make sure that your shape is selected before you try to warp it, otherwise it won't work. So go under Effect, Warp, and we'll go Squeeze. So I'm going to set that to horizontal. And I'm going to, maybe I'll do about 60% on the bend and negative 20% on the vertical. Leave the horizontal at 0. We'll click OK. And now I'm going to go ahead and expand the appearance of that. And now we'll take this and we're going to create some multiples of this. So get a good size for the leg. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to make a copy of this. So I'll select my shape, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a hoof to go in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and I'm going to draw 2 circles that are going to overlap there. And then I'm going to select these 2 circles. So if you click on the one shape and then hold Shift to click on another, the next one, it will select just those 2 shapes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Pathfinder and unite those 2 shapes together. Then I'm going to select the leg and the hoof. And then I'm going to use my intersect option just like we did with the eyeball. So if you go under your Pathfinder, use the one that says intersect, and it gets rid of everything except for the part that the 2 shapes overlap one another. Okay, and now we'll use this as the base for our other legs. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select this shape, and I'll make 3 copies of it. Okay, so actually what I should probably do is maybe group the hoof and the leg together because if I'm going to move them around, I don't want them to be separated from one another. So I'm going to select those legs, and if you right click, you can go to group, or if you select them, you can go under object and group. Either way, it'll group them together. So we're going to go ahead and start arranging these to make them legs for this guy. And what I might actually do is I might put a bend on this. So if we go under Effect, Warp, I'm going to arc that a little bit. We'll set this to 0. And I'm going to do like a, I don't know, 30% bend. Click OK. Then I'm going to expand the appearance. And I might shrink the size down just a little bit. And then I'm going to take this leg and I'm going to arrange, send to the back. So if you right click, you can go arrange, send to back, or you can go object, arrange, send to back. Either way, it'll send it to the back. So I'll stick this leg back here. And I'll send this leg to the back as well. So you can go right click, arrange, send to back, or you can go object, arrange, send to back, however you want to set that up. Okay, so now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to ungroup this leg. So if you right click, you can ungroup it. I'm going to also ungroup this leg. We'll right click, ungroup. Then I'm going to select the leg in the front, hold shift, select the leg on the back. I'm going to select the body, and then I'm going to unite them together with my Pathfinder tool. So we'll take our Pathfinder and unite. Alright, so you might have noticed maybe I took out my color. That's okay. We'll just take this eyedropper and we'll grab the color back. We'll put the stroke around it as well. So grab my stroke, put black around it. Okay, so you might have noticed that it pushed other things to the back that we didn't want it to. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to drag this across here. I'm going to select all this stuff. It's true from the bottom down. And we're going to go object, arrange, and send to back to push everything back where it needs to go. Okay, so I need to bring this hoof up to the front. So I'm going to right click, arrange, bring to front. I'll push this back into place. And let me go ahead and send this to the back too. There we go, looks better. Alright, so from there, I mean, you can make it whatever colors you want it to be. You can arrange it however you want it to sit on your board. So I'll just go with the colors that I already have there. But you can customize it however you want. And if you want to add other details, you're welcome to do so as well. So I'll open up my layers, boop, and bring those back into sight. And let's go. And we're left with this very beautiful unicorn.